Hey guys, tonight we step onto the sandy banks of an emerald ribbon winding through ancient lands. You're right there with me, toes sinking into the cool pre-dawn Nile silt. The sky bleeds soft pink and lavender as stars wink out one by one, and somewhere upstream, a fisherman ducks under a bulrush canopy to avoid teasing crocodile sunblock. Yes, they really used it. Crocodile dung was the ancient equivalent of SPF 50, though you probably wouldn't survive this antics test. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You inhale deeply, tasting the humid air of the Nubian dawn. Papyrus fronds rustle overhead like 1,000 tiny applause, celebrating the beginning of a ritual that in a few centuries will vanish almost entirely from recorded memory. The Nile stretches endlessly to the north, an artery of life that has carried traders, invaders, and poets for millennia. You brush a stray palm frond from your view. Its fibrous veins resemble the lines on a weathered map, guiding you to the heart of a tea ceremony thought long lost. By the time the first sliver of sun peeks over the horizon, you're already kneeling on a woven reed mat, heart tapping in rhythm with distant waterfowl. You tighten the leather straps of your water pouch, a design curiously akin to modern-day hydration packs, proof that some survival hacks really do stand the test of time. A soldier from the time of the Nubian pharaoh Taharqa once carried a similar pouch into battle, surviving skirmishes along the Egyptian frontier. Here, however, your only struggle is against your own yawns. A well-known historical fact drifts through your mind. Ancient Nubia, also called Kush by the Egyptians, built 3 major kingdoms that rivaled its powerful neighbor to the north. You picture those stone chapels along the riverbanks, their hieroglyphs celebrating deities whose names have a melodic cadence: Apedamak, Amun, Mut. In contrast, this morning you're seeking an entirely different kind of divinity in the form of a humble leaf infusion that would someday be sipped in distant lands. You gather smooth river stones to prop up an iron brazier, a relic form that would feel right at home in a modern backyard BBQ if you swapped the charcoal for damp camphor. Wood. Sparks float upward like fireflies as you coax the embers to life. The heat radiates against your palms in gentle waves. In the distance, warriors of the Nubian archers' tradition, recent allies of Ramesses Tut, march past in rust-colored sandals, their feathered headdresses bobbing like curious questions. Light sarcasm drifts through your mind. You wonder if they'd exchange those ornate headpieces for a steaming cup of tea. The humid breeze brings the musky scent of papyrus, mixed with something floral, perhaps lotus blossoms drifting downriver. From a ceremonial barge, you close your eyes and imagine centuries of tea leaf traders navigating the Silk Road equivalents of ancient Africa. Yes, tea originally hails from China, but by the first millennium CE, caravans had woven their way to Nubian outposts along the Nile, introducing locals to the leaf's subtle charms. Historians still debate whether the initial infusion was more medicinal tonic or social lubricant, but here at the riverbank, you're content just to inhale the aromatic steam. You pour a trickling stream of water from your pouch into a clay kettle that's been dried under the desert sun and smeared with date palm sap for extra waterproofing. The wood crackles as you add handfuls of crushed tea leaves, each fragment promising a bitter-sweet journey. Nearby, a reed basket overflows with wild mint sprigs. An eccentric curiosity surfaces. Some ceremonial hosts once tossed crushed oyster shells into their brew to stiffen the foam, believing it strengthened the spirit. You suppress a grin at the mental image of foam flecking your upper lip. As the kettle begins to pulse with gentle bubbles, you arrange 3 shallow cups carved from Nile-rinsed clay in a perfect arc before you. Their rims are etched with stylized lotus motifs, the kind of ornamental detail that would earn a museum plaque today. You lean forward, feeling the steam kiss your eyelashes. That first exhalation tastes of earth, water, and a whisper of distant mountains. Your tongue tingles, and you realize you're fully awake now. No modern coffee required. Somewhere overhead, a pair of sacred ibis swoop down to investigate your makeshift ceremony, their curved beaks dipping near the water. You extend your hand in greeting, half expecting them to bring you more leaves from their sacks. A light joke slides out. If only you could squawk instructions on leaf ratios, I'd have the perfect brew. The ceremony begins as you lift the first cup to your lips and feel the warmth seep through your fingertips. You're anchored in this moment. Sights, sounds, scents coalescing into a single, calming perfection. The Nile's gentle current hums its own lullaby. You rise from the reed mat, brushing off flecks of Nile silt, and follow the river's gentle curve upstream, immediately sensing the invisible threads that once guided tea leaves from distant mountains into Nubian hands. You trace your finger along a worn map sketch in the sand, its lines reminiscent of antique caravan routes. Just beyond the desert horizon lie the bustling Red Sea ports, where Aksumite traders loaded their dhows with ivory, incense, and the first precious tea bricks. A well-known historical fact: by the 6th century CE, the Kingdom of Aksum commanded maritime trade across the Red Sea, linking Nubia to Arabian spice markets and, indirectly, to tea's eastern origins. You lean against a sun-baked clay wall etched with faint glyphs, evidence that Meroa's iron-forging dynasty once thrived here. You can almost hear the hammering of forges blending with the clink of camel bells, a soundtrack to an era when tea first slipped into Nubian folklore. The leaves arrived compressed into bricks for easier transport, much like the chocolate bars you unwrap with childlike delight today, only these were traded ounce by ounce for ivory tusks and fine leather sandals. Historians still debate whether tea bricks reached Nubia via Arabian middlemen or through a direct Red Sea corridor controlled by Indian Ocean mariners. As you walk, your sandals stir up the scent of date palm husks. You spot a small alcove where travelers once paused to rest, stone benches worn smooth by countless journeys, and shallow niches carved for water skins, primitive counterparts to modern hydration stations in ultra-marathon races. An eccentric curiosity emerges. Some caravaneers allegedly carried tea in hollowed-out ostrich eggshells, believing the porous surface improved flavor, though you suspect that was more poetic flourish than practical convenience. You crouch beside a shallow well and draw a ladle of brackish water, imagining merchants coaxing each tea brick to life with hot liquid from portable brazier pots. You rub your lips, recalling the bitter edge of that first cup under the palms, and wonder how long it took locals to perfect the ideal leaf-to-water ratio. Nearby, a fragment of pottery bears tea stain residue, analyzed by chemists who found trace catechins, natural antioxidants that medieval physicians prized as health elixirs. In fact, ancient Nubian healers often prescribed tea infusions for mild fevers, blending them with crushed tamarisk bark for a faintly smoky note. The creek's gentle lap reminds you of ASMR triggers in modern YouTube videos, yet here it's real, producing a hushed lullaby as you wander. You brush your hand through the tall papyrus that marks a former marketplace, its feathery tops whispering secrets of brisk barters over spice sacks and tea bricks. Imagine camel drivers from across the Sahara negotiating in Taida and Tigrinya, offering salt and gold in exchange for tea's comforting warmth. Another academic debate flickers across your mind. Historians still debate whether tea was primarily medicinal, or if it served as a social lubricant to cement alliances between Nubian chiefs and foreign emissaries. Sunlight splashes through dusty air, illuminating the outline of a faded relief depicting a pharaoh offering a cup. An odd anachronism in temple carvings, since Egyptians traditionally sipped wine rather than tea. You lean closer, tracing the chipped stone with your fingertips. Maybe it was a later addition by Nubian artisans blending cultural motifs, ancient Photoshop, if you will. A light joke surfaces. If they had Instagram back then, XT Pharaoh would have trended. You shake out your leather water pouch, its parched interior echoing like an empty drum. You recall that crocodile dung sunscreen, still chuckling at the thought of slathering slime to avoid sunburn, and consider how tea might have seemed equally bizarre to newcomers. The locals, however, quickly adapted. They began mixing tea leaves with locally foraged herbs, Sinai mint, wild hyssop, and fragrant cinnamon bark imported from afar. This herbal collage gave rise to uniquely Nubian blends, each valley and oasis, boasting its own signature twist. You find a cluster of date palms and settle beneath their fronds. Pulling out a small pouch of tea brick fragments, party favors from a reenactment festival, you set up a miniature brazier made from cracked pottery. As you coax the embers to life, sparks drift toward the palms, evoking firefly trails that once guided desert travelers. You scoop hot water into a chipped kettle, and the first wisps of steam rise like miniature clouds tinted by the saffron dawn. A local fisher pauses to watch your ritual, offering a slender reed packed with wild mint, an unexpected gift that brightens the brew's aroma. You accept it with a nod that feels like you've just earned honorary Nubian citizenship. This light-hearted exchange echoes the informal treaties once sealed over tea between caravan guilds and village elders. A well-documented fact. Tribal councils in medieval Nubia often convened beside the Nile to discuss grain tributes and trade taxes while sipping perfumed tea, soothing debates as heated as any modern diplomatic summit. You lift the cup and inhale deeply, savoring the layered aroma, vegetal top notes, honeyed midtones, and a whisper of desert wind. Your tongue tingles on the first sip as you let the liquid pool at the back of your throat, imagining the ripple effect this infusion had on local culture. Suddenly the papyrus sways more vigorously as if cheering you on. You laugh softly. Some things never change, humans and plants dancing together across time. As the sun climbs higher, you slowly empty the cup, pondering how such a simple leaf could traverse mountains, seas, and deserts to become a daily ritual here. The sensation of warmth spreads from your fingertips inward like a cozy blanket draped across your shoulders. You rise, splaying your arms out wide, and feel momentarily weightless, connected to every teacup poured along these shores centuries ago. With a gentle exhale, you gather your receptacles and continue along the river, your mind buzzing with trade route equations and herbal curiosities. Ahead lies the next phase of discovery, gathering the components for a ceremonial brew that binds you to the ancients. But for now, you carry the tea's heritage within each warm sip, ready to see where the river's path leads next. You follow a meandering sandbar that juts into the Nile's smooth curve, the water lapping at your ankles like a gentle reminder of ancient rhythms. Your sandals leave transient imprints, just as earlier Nubian tea hosts once stamped fresh. Footprints before arranging ceremony items. You stoop to fill your leather water pouch at a small spring bubbling through river stones, its cool clarity making even modern water filters feel like novelty appliances. A well-known historical fact brushes through your mind. The kingdom of Kush, flourishing between 1070 BCE and 350 CE, controlled this very stretch of the Nile and built over 200 pyramids at Meroe. You imagine tea brewing beside those slender monuments, smoke curling skyward in delicate spirals. Settled on a pebble-strewn bank, you begin the essential gathering ritual. First, clean water. You dip a reed ladle into the bubbling spring and channel the liquid through a reed basket lined with finely woven palm fibers, an ancestral filter promising purity. An eccentric curiosity floats into view. Some ceremonial masters purportedly scented their water by swishing it through hollow papyrus stems to infuse a light vegetal aroma, like prehistoric aromatherapy, if you will. You rub your hands together, marveling how this humble process echoes the precision of modern cold brew coffee steeping. A stack of driftwood logs lies half submerged nearby, bleached by sun and softened by water. You select branches, still firm, enough to kindle a flame, acacia and tamarisk, prized for their slow burn and fragrant smoke. The crackling sound you'll produce later rivals any high-end ASMR video. Imagine delicate pops and hisses simulating rainfall on tin roof sheets. As you gather firewood, you recall the playful warning from your first sip. If you survive crocodile sunscreen trials, you can survive anything. A soft chuckle escapes, imagining ancient spa treatments that double as defensive tactics. Next, you scout for herbs. Papyrus reeds sway overhead, but you're looking for low-lying growth, wild mint, tamarind leaves, and a clump of marjoram sprouting near a termite mound. You pluck each sprig, gently snapping stems to release aromatic oils that drift into your nostrils. This herbal bouquet will later harmonize with the tea's natural bitterness, like a trio of wind chimes tuned perfectly to dusk. Historians still debate whether the Nubians added these wild herbs primarily for medicinal benefits or simply for flavor, though here the two feel inseparable. You crouch beneath a fig tree, collecting fallen leaves for a soft ground mat. The rustle of dry foliage under your fingertips reminds you of crepe paper unwrapping at a birthday party. Oddly satisfying and completely out of place on a riverbank. You spread the leaves in a neat square, creating a natural altar for the brewing apparatus. Nearby, waterfowl glide past with effortless grace, their silhouettes mirrored on the Nile's glassy surface. You lean forward, inhaling that distinctive, musty, sweet scent of decaying fig leaves, proof that every end is a beginning, just like each cup of tea. Fire safety is paramount. You clear a circular area of flammable debris around your makeshift hearth, drawing a boundary in the soft sand. This precautionary step recalls modern camping guidelines, though your tools are decidedly more low-tech. No camping stoves or portable propane tanks here, just ember coaxing and careful wood stacking. An eccentric anecdote visits your mind. A local legend claimed that one ceremonial host lit tea fires with charred date stones, believing the ritual smoke summoned protective spirits. You envision ghostly silhouettes dancing in the saffron morning light, then quash the image, reminding yourself you're here for relaxation, not a séance. With water, wood, and herbs assembled, you arrange them in a purposeful constellation. The clay kettle sits central on a tripod of 3 sturdy sticks, each lash tied with palm fiber twine. This tripod design, archaeologists agree, was ubiquitous across Nubia, akin to the universal tripod stands seen in archaeological digs worldwide. Today, you secure the setup and strike flint against a river pebble, igniting a spark that catches on a dried reed bundle. The flame crackles to life, growing into a gentle blaze that warms the kettle's underside with a coppery glow. You settle back onto your fig leaf mat, feeling the sun's warmth brush your neck as the first wisps of steam curl from the kettle spout. Nearby, fish leap in silver arcs, a natural performance you'd happily set to a relaxed lo-fi playlist. A light joke pops into your head. If I were a fish, I'd be here just for the free steam sauna. The water begins a rhythmic boil, and you place a small clay plate on a nearby rock to hold your collected mint and marjoram. As the kettle sings a hushed metallic tune, you grind a handful of tea brick fragments on a flat stone, coaxing them into coarse granules. This manual milling mirrors early spice grinders used in medieval apothecaries, though you're aiming for a coarser consistency that releases flavor slowly, perfect for a long, drifting sip. You dust off your hands, admires the pale green blend of crushed leaves and wood ash. An academic debate surfaces once more. Historians still debate whether larger tea leaves retained in brick form offered more flavor complexity than the pulverized dust common in later infusions. Collecting everything, you position the herbal sprigs around the kettle's base, creating a visual mosaic of green, brown, and black that feels like an artisanal charcuterie board, if charcuterie were for your inner herbalist. The slow ASMR hiss of steam meets the gentle crackle of wood, and you close your eyes, allowing the soundscape to wrap around you. A soft breeze lifts stray hair across your face, carrying with it whispers of date palm blossoms drifting from upstream groves. You tilt your head back and stretch your arms wide, like an ancient priest offering tribute to Ra. Only your offering is a humble cup of tea. You savor the momentary stillness before purposefully stirring a reed spoon through the kettle, swirling tea and water in a lazy whirl that disturbs the surface only minimally. The design is intentional. Too much agitation would muddy the flavors, just as oversharing on social media muddies personal boundaries. Minutes pass in near silence, save for the crackling hearth and your measured breaths. You feel an almost physical connection to the riverbank, the heat of the kettle warming your shins, the tactile coolness of fig leaves under your fingertips, and the liquid anticipation of that first poured cup. A final light joke tickles your mind. I'd give this setup 5 stars on Riverbank Advisor. With the tea ready, you reach for a cup, its rim just beginning to steam. You know that the next section will capture that first sip under palm trees. Yet for now, you reveled in the artistry of preparation, the sense that each aromatic detail cements your bond with a ceremony lost to most of history. You settle back onto your fig leaf mat, the Nile's gentle murmur still drifting in your ears, and turn your attention to the sacred vessels and tools before you. Each object gleams with purpose, a trio of clay cups, a bulbous kettle, and a handcrafted filter that look almost too perfect for a riverbank. Yet, here they are, just like the delicate teacup sets from a modern tea show. You lift the nearest cup, its rim cool and smooth beneath your fingertips, embossed with stylized lotus petals that feel like a soothing blind texture quiz. A well-known historical fact floats to the surface of your mind. By the time of the Meroitic period, Nubian potters had developed high-fired ceramics that rivaled contemporary Egyptian wares, producing sturdy vessels traded as far south as the equatorial lakes. You hold the cup up to the light. Faint striations in the clay revealed the potter's wheel marks, each curve a gentle testament to skilled hands centuries ago. In contrast, your own morning coffee mug today probably came from a factory. No artisanal wheel required, but also no personal touch. You inspect the clay kettle next, wide-bellied with a narrow neck and a single curved spout designed to minimize spills as you pour into those shallow cups. The handle arches gracefully, its curve reminiscent of a swan's neck, and feels balanced in your grip. A light joke flickers. You wonder if modern teapot designers would swap their silicon handles for this sleek clay model. Minimalist, biodegradable, and prone to early retirement via river tumble. Between you and the kettle lies the makeshift filter, a cone of palm fiber mesh, tightly woven to catch every stray leaf fragment. You lift it gently, running a finger over the interlaced strands, each fiber so fine it almost tricks you into believing this was the original high-tech tea filter. An eccentric curiosity surfaces. Some ceremonial hosts favored goat hair filters, believing the lanolin residue added a faintly buttery note to the infusion. You suppress a grin at the thought of milky tea, though it would certainly elevate chai latte to a whole new level. You arrange the vessels in a neat semicircle, as if staging a small museum exhibit. Here's the kettle that once heated, the ancient brew. There's the filter that preserved clarity. And these are the cups that carried flavor to lips long gone. You trace one cup's rim and notice tiny nicks, battle scars from ceremonial missteps or simply everyday use. Historians still debate whether these vessels were reserved strictly for elite weddings and state gatherings, or if common villagers also enjoyed communal tea breaks along the river. The clay's surface is engraved with geometric motifs, zigzags, and concentric circles that seem abstract until you realize they mimic the swirling water patterns you heard back in Section 1. This cross-reference makes you smile. The Nile inspires both art and ceremony, its currents echoing in clay. A light joke escapes. These potter's glyphs could double as a futuristic QR code if only your smartphone supported hieroglyphics. You hold the filter above your kettle and peer through the mesh at the palm fibers. They're surprisingly flexible, shaped by steaming and repeated use until they resembled modern paper filters, biodegradable, elegant, and likely discarded after each ceremony to avoid cross-flavor contamination. An academic debate surfaces. Some scholars argue these filters were single-use for hygienic reasons, while others claim they were rinsed and reused for weeks, prized like limited edition tea strainers. Reaching for a clay scoop, the teaspoon, equivalent, you dip into a small jar of crushed tea brick fragments. The scoop's handle is hollowed, perfect for tiny herbal infusions, and fits snugly against your palm. You flick the jar's lid against your wrist to dislodge stubborn bits. An ASMR click you'd happily loop in a relaxation video. Nearby, mint sprigs and date paste balls sit on a carved wooden tray, waiting to join the infusion. You balance the scoop above the filter and let the tea fragments tumble into the mesh, the small cascade mimicking a pebble drop in a still pond. Each grain settles among the woven fibers, promising to steep slowly. A light joke trickles in. I'd pay good money to see a slow-motion replay of that tea tumble, cinematic gold. The kettle begins its gentle boil, and you lower the filter cone into the neck, aligning it perfectly so the infusion drips steadily into the bulbous belly. You watch droplet after droplet collect and fall, each one a tiny orb of concentrated flavor. The rhythmic drip-drip aligns with your breathing, easing you further into the present moment. You pause to admire a decorative ladle carved from ivory-colored bone, an eccentric hue choice, given how rare ivory was even in trade hubs. A local legend claims some hosts used camel rib bones, believing the marrow added richness to the tea's mouthfeel. You tap the ladle gently against the kettle. The hollow ring resembles a small bell, evoking memories of temple rituals. As you taste, a test drop, the aroma unfurls, earthy, slightly smoky, with a gentle menthol lift from the embedded mint oils. The vessels you've assembled, each cup, kettle, filter, combine to create an orchestra of sensation, from tactile impressions to olfactory crescendos. You notice how the unglazed clay soaks up the flavors, mellowing stronger notes and lending a velvety mouthfeel, much like how cast-iron skillets season over time. You lean back and let the sun warm your shoulders. A final light joke surfaces. "Forget my yoga mat, these cedar cups are the real relaxation aid." The tools lie silent, now, but their presence resonates, as if they're whispering instructions on how to treasure every sip. You gently lift a cup and tuck the filter aside, ready to pour the first ceremonial serving. Your attention shifts to the next phase, lifting the kettle, pouring golden liquid into gently waiting cups, and feeling the warmth spread through your hands. But for now, you honor the vessels, marveling at how each nick, curve, and fiber tells a story of craftsmanship, ceremony, and the timeless pursuit of a perfect brew. You lift the clay kettle by its graceful swan neck handle and pour the amber infusion into the 3 waiting cups, each droplet plopping softly like a desert rainfall. Steam swirls upward, carrying the scent of wood smoke mingled with mint and date paste sweetness. You cradle the nearest cup in both hands, feeling the unglazed clay's gentle warmth seep into your fingertips as the breeze teases the palm fronds overhead. A well-known historical fact drifts through your mind. The date palm was one of the oldest cultivated trees in ancient Nubia, prized for both its fruit and the intense shade it cast, vital under that merciless sun. You raise the cup to your lips, pausing to savor the moment fully, as if you've just discovered a secret handshake with history. Your first sip is a symphony. The liquid spreads across your tongue like silken tapestry, its vegetal bitterness softened by the mint's cool whisper and the faint honeyed notes of date sap. Somewhere above, a palm frond quivers, raining tiny pollen grains down upon you like nature's confetti. You tilt your head back and imagine pharaohs reclining on similar reed mats, applauding each other's choice of leaf-to-water ratio. A light joke escapes. "I bet they didn't have to Google how much mint is too much mint." The river's lullaby accompanies your second sip, each swallow releasing new hidden notes, smoky undertones from the acacia wood, a trace of oyster shell-enhanced foam that tickles the roof of your mouth. An eccentric curiosity surfaces. Some ceremony hosts once dropped a single pulverized snail shell into the brew, convinced the calcium boosted energy and daydream quality. Though you suspect it tasted more like an underwater jamboree. You close your eyes, picturing a snail shell conga line dancing across your palate, and chuckle at the mental image. Historians still debate whether these additives were primarily medicinal or performed a more symbolic role in the ritual, but here you're more concerned with how the tea's warmth spreads down your throat like a cozy blanket. You sip slowly, letting the warmth pool in your chest, each swallow a gentle nudge toward drowsiness. The light sarcasm in your mind quips, "If modern coffee could accomplish this, mornings would be a lot more serene. A palm trunk beside you bears carved tally marks, perhaps counting ceremonies or marking lunar phases, but it also looks like someone's ancient attempt at doodling. You run a finger over the grooves, imagining bored scribbles transforming into ritual records. You set down your cup and reach for a second, inhaling its rising steam. Tiny beads of condensation gather on the rim, mirroring dew collecting on palm fronds at dawn. You wonder if anyone ever used palm thatch umbrellas to shield their cups from stray drips, ancient patio chic perhaps. You sink back onto the fig leaf mat, sipping the final cup as the sun arcs higher, gilding the Nile's surface with light. A small gang of Egyptian geese waddles by, their honking chatter drowning out any urge to check modern notifications. You imagine inviting them to the ceremony, though their loud voices might break the meditative hush. Another light joke ripples. Next time, I'll bring earplugs for goose-induced ASMR conflicts. The aroma lingers in the air, infusing your senses like a memory you can't quite forget. You lean forward, tracing the cup's rim with your thumb. The unglazed clay absorbs air. Tiny droplets, much like cast-iron skillets, learn flavors over time. You think of Section 4's vessel inspection, recalling the ivory-hued ladle and palm fiber filter, each piece contributing to this perfect sip. Without those tools, you'd be gulping warm water with a stray leaf or two, which wouldn't make for a soothing bedtime story. Mid-sip, you notice a palm frond arching low enough to brush your hair. It tickles your neck, and you shiver with delight. The frond's feathered texture reminds you of quill pens used in medieval scriptoria, though those scribes probably never paused to appreciate palm-scented breezes. You inhale deeply, catching a whisper of lotus blossom drifting downriver from a sanctuary barge. The combination of aromas, wood smoke, mint, lotus, feels intentionally orchestrated by nature's own perfumer. An academic debate nudges your thoughts again. Historians still debate whether tea ceremonies served primarily as healing rites performed by Nubian priests or as social ceremonies reinforcing village hierarchies. You let that question float, returning your attention to the cup's smooth interior. You swirl the last drop, admiring how light fractures on its surface like tiny prisms. The visual sparkle could rival any meditation app's screensaver. You set the cup aside and cradle the final vessel in your hands, the lacquered geometric carvings rubbing softly against your palm. This last sip feels ceremonial, like sealing a pact with the ancients. You lift it to your lips one final time, letting the tea's lingering warmth spread through you. The taste is softer now, more contemplative, as though the brew itself is bidding farewell. You close your eyes for a moment, committing the flavor to memory, like savoring the last page of a favorite book. As the cup's empty, your heart rate slows, your breaths lengthen, and the Nile's ambient chorus seems to hum in harmony with your pulse. You lean back, head resting against a palm trunk warmed by the sun, and feel an overwhelming sense of calm. A final light joke drifts through. If sleep were a flavor, this would be it. You glance at your scattered tools, vessels waiting for cleanup, filter fibers still damp, and realize that every element contributed to this perfect first sip under the palm trees. The date palm shade, the mint's coolness, the kettle's gentle hiss, and even the snail shell lore all wove together to create an immersive moment. You exhale, letting the satisfaction settle in your chest and prepare to stand, knowing the ceremony's next phase will explore the broader narratives of merchant caravans that spread this ritual far beyond these shores. For now, though, you rest in the quiet aftermath of that first sip, enjoying the soft embrace of the Nile's dawn and the lingering warmth in your hands. You rise at dawn, stretching under a sky buffed to pastel perfection, and mount a sturdy camel whose padded feet sink into the dawn-warmed sand like pillows into a plush mattress. Each step the camel takes sets up a hypnotic sway, reminding you of the Nile current's gentle lullaby back at the riverbank. You lean forward, gripping the leather reins and inhaling the slightly spicy aroma of desert air mixed with your own lingering tea scent from Section 5's cups. The horizon shimmers, dunes rolling like ocean waves frozen mid-crash. A well-known historical fact anchors your mind. By the 12th century, CE, trans-Saharan trade routes, often called the Desert Silk Road, connected sub-Saharan Africa to Mediterranean ports carrying gold, salt and exotic goods like Nubian tea bricks. You glance at the small burlap sack slung across your saddle, filled with brittle fragments of tea compressed long ago for easier transport. It feels heavy with promise, the way you'd hug a care package sent from home. You nudge your camel into motion. The caravan's slow procession stretches behind you, a string of soft humps and jingling ankle bells, each animal tethered to the next by lengths of braided rope. Somewhere ahead, a merchant fiddles with a carved bone flute, coaxing, a sleepy tune that drifts through the caravan like a comforting blanket. A light joke arises. If I get bored, I'll just ask him to switch to a lo-fi remix. The sun peaks above an ochre ridge, its rays creating rippling shadows that dance across the caravan's path. The sand beneath your camel crunches invitingly, reminiscent of stepping on a trail of cinnamon sugar, sweet in memory, less so on bare feet. An eccentric curiosity drifts through your thoughts. Some caravan leaders painted their camels with food-grade dyes in bright patterns, believing the colors would confuse sandstorms into passing them by unharmed. You imagine camels decked out, in neon zebra stripes fleeing ghostly dust devils, an ancient version of desert rave gear. By late morning, the caravan pauses at a sparse oasis dotted with scraggly acacia trees. You dismount, your legs folding stiffly under you as you brush off sand from your trousers. You approach the water trough, cups in hand, recalling Section 4's ornate clay vessels and the makeshift palm fiber filter. You refill a cup with cool, clear spring water to rinse your mouth, the liquid gurgling like a tiny, contented brook. You swirl it around, marveling at how even the simplest refreshment feels luxurious after hours in the sun. Nearby, merchants unload supplies, salt blocks arrayed like white gravestones, leather skins stuffed with dates, and coiled lengths of rope dyed crimson from hibiscus petals. Someone passes you a small pouch of roasted locusts, an unexpected snack that crackles between your teeth like popcorn. You pop one in your mouth, surprised by its nutty flavor, and flash a grin. If only modern trail mix were this protein-packed. After a brief rest, the caravan resumes its journey. The path narrows as it skirts a vast expanse known as the Great Erg, a sea of sand that shifts with the slightest breeze. You lean back into your camel's sway, focusing on the rhythmic creak of leather saddles. A gentle breeze carries the scent of distant time, mingling with the ever-present dust and reminding you of Section 3's hand-woven reed filters, releasing herbal aromas. You breathe deeply, letting the layered scents anchor you in the moment. As the sun climbs higher, the heat intensifies, shimmering waves rolling across the sand like a molten mirage. You press a cool cloth, soaked in the remaining tea from Section 5 against your forehead, finding surprising relief in that mint-infused dampness. An academic debate surfaces in your mind. Historians still debate whether caravan guards were primarily armed for protection against raiders, or if they served more as ceremonial escorts to signal the trade's prestige. You smile, picturing armed. Camel jockeys in flowing robes, more fashion statement than frontline defender. By mid-afternoon, you crest a high dune and gaze down at an expanse of ochre and gold. The caravan snakes through this landscape like a living thread in an endless tapestry. A light joke bubbles up. If Instagram had existed, this would have been my daily stories highlight. You urge your camel forward, its steady steps churning, the sand into soft clouds that drift away like ancient secrets. At a natural spring, tucked behind a rocky outcrop, the caravan stops again. You dismount and follow the sound of trickling water to a small basin lined with smooth stones. You recall Section 2's account of merchants filtering brackish well water through palm fibers, then extending that technique here to purify the spring's flow. You scoop water into a clay cup and sip, the liquid cool as melted glacier ice, carrying subtle mineral notes. You close your eyes, savoring the reprieve, and imagine medieval travelers comparing this oasis to fabled fountains of youth. At the spring's edge, an eccentric ritual unfolds. Merchants ceremoniously dip tea brick fragments into the water, chanting prayers to the desert wind for safe passage. You grin at the poignancy, like tossing coins into a well, but replacing wishes with tea. A breeze tugs at your hair, scattering date palm pollen around you like confetti. You raise your cup in mock salute to the sky, prompting a murmur of laughter from the caravan guard. Refreshed, you clamber back onto your camel, the rhythmic sway lulling you into a reflective mood. You glance at the small satchel of tea, imagining how each brick's journey from mountain slopes to these dunes underscores tea's power as a cultural connector. You think of the relics along the Nile, potsherds bearing tea residue, Section 3, ceremonial cups carved with lotus motifs, Section 4, and now these rough-hewn trade sacks sinewed with camel hair. All are linkages in a chain that binds distant peoples together. As the sun begins its descent, painting the dunes in shades of apricot and rose, the caravan forges on toward the next encampment. Shadows lengthen, and the heat mellows into a comfortable warmth. You feel the satisfaction of a journey completed by collective effort, each participant, camel, merchant, guard, and even you, playing a vital role. A final light joke drifts through your mind. If couriers today delivered tea by drone, they'd never appreciate sand in their shoes. Night approaches, and lanterns will soon flicker awake across the camp, ready to illuminate tea-time stories. But for now, you ride on, the caravan's cadence guiding you like a lullaby. The dunes shift, the horizon glows, and you carry within you both the tangible weight of tea brick fragments and the intangible magic of shared ritual. You sink into a low dune seat at the edge of the camp's flickering lantern light, the caravan's chatter humming like background static in a cozy cafe. The desert air has cooled enough for you to wrap a lightweight shawl, woven from goatee hair, around your shoulders. You cradle your clay cup from Section 4, its curved swan neck handle fitting perfectly in your palm. Tonight, you're not just sipping tea, you're savoring centuries of symbolism steeped in each drop. You lift the cup and swirl the liquid, watching its copper hues ripple under lantern glow. A well-known historical fact floats through your mind. Across ancient Nubia, color and symbolism were inseparable. Red ochre dust on temple walls signified life and vitality, while deep blues of lapis lazuli represented the heavens. In this context, the tea's warm amber becomes a bridge between earthly comfort and celestial reverie. You inhale the steam, tasting floral notes that nod to the lotus, a symbol of rebirth revered by both Nubian and Egyptian artisans. Your fingers trace the etched lotus motif on the cup rim, recalling Section 4's observation of geometric designs, echoing Nile currents. Here, symbolism takes you deeper. The lotus blooms unstained from murky waters, much like the tea ceremony emerging from desert sands to bring calm. A light joke arises. If yoga mats had motifs like these cups, downward, dogs would feel more enlightened. You take a sip, letting the flavors cascade over your tongue. There's a gentle bitterness balanced by saffron's honeyed sweetness, a duality that resonates with Nubian beliefs in life's cyclical nature. The ancients saw the Nile's annual flood as both destructive force and regenerative gift. Similarly, the tea's edge reminds you of hardship, while its warmth speaks of renewal. Nearby, a guard polishes a bronze lantern, its reflective surface gleaming like a modern stainless steel thermos. An eccentric curiosity drifts through your thoughts. Some ceremonial hosts dropped a pinch of crushed malachite into the brew, believing the green mineral's energy would confer health and clarity, though ingesting copper-based compounds today would trigger far more alarms than ancient mystics ever imagined. You smirk at the dramatic contrast between mystical beliefs and modern safety warnings. You lean forward, cupping both hands around the warm vessel. The amber liquid catches the lantern's firelight, fracturing into tiny rainbows across the clays. Unglazed interior. You watch the light play, feeling as though you hold a miniature universe in your grasp. Historians still debate whether symbolic elements in tea ceremony, colors, aromas, even ritual movements, were codified by priestly castes or emerged organically among villagers over generations. A gentle breeze rustles the tent flaps, carrying the sweet scent of burnt date fruit from a nearby cooking fire. You inhale, imagining those same aromas wafting through the grand halls of Meroe's palaces, where courtiers toasted alliances over perfumed tea. A light joke bubbles up. If Tinder existed, then I bet tea photography would have been their #1 conversation starter. You set the cup down and trace the carved zigzag on its base, a motif reminiscent of the Nile's meandering path. In Section 2, you followed trade routes by fingering map sketches in the sand. Here, you map emotional currents through symbolism. The zigzag becomes life's unpredictable turns, while the lotus cup rim gestures toward eventual tranquility. Across the campfire, a merchant plays a soft tune on his bone flute, the notes weaving through palm frond walls. You close your eyes, letting the melody and the tea's warmth converge. Somewhere in history, tea aromas mingled with incense offerings to Amun-Ra, rituals designed to sanctify harvests and births alike. You sip again, tasting subtle whispers of wild mint documented in Section 3, adding a fresh green layer of promise and growth. The camp's shadows deepen, and you notice how the lantern flames flicker like dancing spirits. You recall the eccentric snail shell foam from Section 5, once thought to link drinkers to underworld deities through calcium-rich froth. It's funny how an ingredient as mundane as a snail shell could carry all that weight. You stifle a laugh, picturing ancient mystics carving tiny snail dances into amphora lids. You rest your elbow on your knee and lean forward in contemplative pose, exhaling a cloud of tea-scented steam. Symbolism isn't just confined to color or taste. Each ritual gesture bears layered meaning. Stirring the tea 9 times, for instance, echoed the 9 deities believed to govern Nile floods. 9 turns of the reed spoon would ensure balance between caution and abundance, much like modern baristas perfecting latte art with precise wrist flicks. A light joke surfaces. Barista championships in ancient Nubia must have been fierce. Your thoughts drift to the ceremonial fire itself. Flames represented purification, cleansing old energies to bless the new brew. The acacia logs you gathered in Section 3 once crackled in hearths where villagers shared healing teas for minor aches, believing the combined warmth of fire and cup could mend both body and spirit. You cradle the cup's base, feeling its heat echo in your fingertips. You lift the cup again, this time to appreciate aroma rather than taste. The bouquet rises, whispering of desert thyme, crushed marjoram, and a hint of tangy date. Each scent is a word in an unspoken poem about environment and identity. Modern perfumers would pay fortunes for such organic complexity. You inhale deeply, humming softly in appreciation, a spontaneous somatic response that feels as natural as breathing. In the firelight, you spot a small patch of blue-green residue on one cup's exterior, perhaps a remnant of that oxide-infused tea some mystic swore by. You touch it delicately, marveling at how these vessels bear minute historical traces. An academic debate drifts into your mind again. Scholars still disagree whether symbolic rituals around tea were standardized by royal decree or evolved regionally, resulting in hundreds of local variations. You consider that perhaps ritual uniformity would have been impossible given Nubia's vast geography. A soft snort from a nearby camel breaks the stillness, reminding you not to take symbolism too seriously. You grin, remembering the caravan's neon-striped camel prank from Section 6, proof that even spiritual journeys welcome levity. You raise your cup in a playful salute to the camel's unexpected comedic timing. A light joke surfaces. If camels could critique my posture, I'd be in trouble. You take a final swallow, feeling how the symbolic interplay of color, taste, and ritual gestures resonates within your chest. You place the empty cup on a low stone, the lotus etchings, catching the lantern's glow like braille for the eyes. The tea's cultural symbolism, embracing life's highs and lows, echoing cycles of renewal and bridging mortal and divine, lingers as both intellectual puzzle and soothing balm. Rising, you tuck the cup into a woven sanitation cloth, ready for cleaning, but unwilling to let go of its symbolic weight just yet. The campfire's embers glow blue at the edges, a final reminder that even ashes hold energy. You walk toward your tent, carrying not just a utensil, but a vessel brimming with ancestral meaning. As you unroll your sleeping mat, you reflect on how tea, so simple yet profound, became a living metaphor for Nubian existence. In the hush, before sleep, you feel both humbled and uplifted, poised between mortality and renewal, guided by the tea's soft amber lantern. Tomorrow you'll journey onward, but tonight you rest cradled by symbols as ancient as the Nile itself. You follow the archaeologist's lead down a narrow trench cut into sun-baked limestone, the air thick with dust motes dancing in shafts of afternoon light. His trowel scrapes against a broken ceramic vessel rim, and you lean in, inhaling a faint tang of fermented date paste still clinging to the shard's inner surface. This discovery is part of a collapsed storeroom near an ancient Nubian temple, an unlikeliest pantry that once housed eccentric tea additives. You brush away crumbling mortar, exposing a row of small jars, each sealed with palm fiber lids. A well-known historical fact surfaces. Dates were a staple crop in Nubia for over 3,000 years, cultivated since at least 3000 BCE, their syrupy paste, prized for energy and sweetness. You pick up a jar, its clay cool against your palm, and crack the lid. A waft of thick, honeyed aroma greets you, instantly conjuring memories of Section 5's date paste balls, adding a gentle sweetness to your brew. You taste a tiny dab with your finger. Its concentrated richness coats your tongue like a velvet cloak, and imagine how temple priests might have stirred it into tea for ceremonial feasts. Leaning closer, you examine another vessel filled with brittle fragments of wild mint. You rub a few crushed leaves between your fingertips, releasing sharp menthol notes that tingle your nose. The scent snaps you back to Section 3's riverside herb gathering, where you plucked mint sprigs fresh from papyrus-lined banks. Here, though, centuries of burial have concentrated the oils into ghostly potency. You laugh softly at the thought. This mint's so potent, it could have jump-started an entire caravan. Next to the mint jar, you uncover a shallow bowl encrusted with chalky residue. You touch the layer gingerly and taste a grain. It crunches beneath your tooth like ancient sea salt. This is crushed oyster shell, an eccentric curiosity once added to tea to stiffen the foam into frothy peaks. You recall Section 5's mention of snail shell additions. Here, though, oyster fragments seem more oceanic than terrestrial. You hold a sliver up to the light, curved, iridescent, a tiny fossil reminding you that Nubia's riverine culture was never far from distant seas via trade. You quip under your breath, who knew tea ceremonies had their own shellfish twist? Historians still debate whether crushed oyster shells served a primarily practical purpose, adding calcium to bolster local diets, or played a symbolic role, representing the fertile union of river and sea. You imagine a fistful of shell grit rattling through a clay filter, each granule boosting both foam and folklore. The academic debate floats alongside your senses as you carefully bag each sample for lab analysis. A nearby inscription carved into stone depicts stylized waves and shell patterns, hinting that the ceremony's originators might have viewed oyster foam as offering liquid pearls to their gods. You trace the grooves gently, feeling the grooves under your fingertips like braille for the senses. It strikes you as a playful fusion of earthly bounty and divine tribute. A light joke slips out. Liquid pearls. Next, they'll be charging admission. You set the jars on a low bench and arrange them in order. Date paste for sweetness, mint for cool brightness, oyster shell for froth and calcium. You consider how each additive interacts. The date paste sinks into the tea's body, softening edges. The mint zings through the finish, refreshing tongue and mind. The shell fizzes the surface into microbubbles that cling to lips. The combined effect must have been as thrilling as swapping emojis with an old friend, analog style. As you pack the samples, a colleague hands you a parchment filled with residue analysis charts. Traces of tart hawthorn petals appear alongside mint DNA strands, suggesting even more exotic ingredients once flavored this brew. You wonder whether archaeologists will unearth pomegranate rind next, a tangy dare to awaken sleepy ceremony guests. You smirk at the mental image of pomegranate projecting "I mean business" vibes in your bedtime tea. The sun dips lower, and the trench's cool gloom deepens. You dust off your hands and stand, visualizing the ceremonial kitchen where these jars once lived. Imagine temple acolytes stirring their kettles over smoky fires, measuring date paste by the crushed oyster shell's sheen and mint by its crisp snap. Each gesture precise, perfumed, purposeful. It's an ancestral recipe book, buried under rubble, now resurrected in fragments. You pocket a small mint fragment, slipping it into your shirt pocket, an improvised modern talisman. Later, you'll add it to your evening brew, bridging time, with a single leaf. A light joke arises. Modern ASMR tea vids have nothing on authentic time travel brews. Pausing at the trench's edge, you gaze at the path leading back to the riverbank where Section 1 began. The storage jar's eccentric contents reveal how deeply embedded tea culture was in Nubian spirituality and daily life. These additives, wild, mint for clarity, date paste for unity, oyster shell for resilience, tell a story of innovation and adaptation. You tread slowly, each step echoing on sun-bleached stone, carrying samples destined to unlock more secrets. You recall the gentle crackle of the brazier from Section 3, the tender pour in Section 5, and the symbolism swirling in Section 7's lantern-lit ceremony. Now you add this chapter of eccentric ingredients to your internal tea playlist, ready to share with viewers seeking both relaxation and wonder. You let out a contented sigh, dusting off your tunic. Tomorrow, the lab will analyze residue spectrums, hoping to pinpoint pH levels, sugar ratios, and the precise oyster shell crystallography. But tonight, you carry the sensory memory of date sweet, warmth, mint-kissed freshness, and shell-frothed elegance. You tuck the jars into protective linen, savoring the tactile thrum of history in your palms. As you walk back toward camp, the sun's last rays gilding temple stones, you feel the thrill of reconnecting with a lost ritual's eccentric edge. The path ahead promises more revelations. Modern revival attempts and pop culture echoes await in the next sections. Yet for now, you cradle these jars like precious relics, their contents alive with potential and poetry. You stand amid the crumbling remains of a once grand Nubian palace, the desert wind tugging at your loose linen tunic as you survey the ornate columns half buried in ochre sand. The air tastes faintly of dust and distant smoke, remnants of fires that once crackled with ceremonial fervor. You recall Section 5's first sip under palm trees when the world felt ripe with promise and contrasted with the present hush of abandonment. Here, the very walls seemed to sigh, mourning a ritual that slipped away under the weight of political upheaval. A well-known historical fact anchors your thoughts. By the mid-7th century CE, the Arab-Muslim conquests had reached Nubia's southern borders, sparking centuries of conflict and uneasy treaties, events that gradually eroded the centralized kingdoms of Kush. You run your fingers over faded hieroglyphs carved into worn stone, imagining royal processions where tea ceremonies once showcased state power and hospitality. Now only shards of pottery and scattered ash remain to testify. You crouch beside a toppled column, its surface adorned with lotus motifs you first admired in Section 4's sacred vessels. Those same lotus petals, once a visual metaphor for rebirth, now lie fractured, as if the symbol itself succumbed to the sands of time. A light joke drifts through your mind. If only that lotus had a restore button like your phone's deleted files. In the palace's grand hall, you notice a shallow basin carved into the marble floor, stained with ancient mineral residues. Echoes of Section 8's oyster shell foam swirl in your imagination. Perhaps this hollow once held ceremonial water used to rinse filters, its residue mingling with date paste, drippings from festive feasts. You dip a fingertip into the basin's cool murk, tasting a whisper of brine, an eccentric curiosity that hints at coastal trade sustaining inland ceremonies long after political stability waned. You step across mosaic fragments depicting camel caravans, much like the one you joined in Section 6, their handlers offering tea brick tributes to local rulers. These mosaics, scholars believe, were added in the late medieval period when caravan taxation became Nubia's economic linchpin, yet today they lie shattered, the subject of heated academic debate. Historians still debate whether the increasing caravan tolls funded defensive works that ultimately failed, or if they merely accelerated economic decline by overburdening traders. The wind picks up, stirring the loose sand into miniature dust devils that twirl like spectral dancers in the golden light. You tuck a stray lock of hair behind your ear and inhale, catching a distant note of sun-baked papyrus and a faint hint of mint. Residual fragrance carried from the riverbank some miles away. That scent evokes Section 3's ritual preparation. By the water's edge, a reminder that nature endures even as human institutions falter. You walk toward a collapsed storage chamber where broken jars and filters lie strewn across half-buried shelves. Among them, fragments of palm fiber mesh like the ones you used in Section 4 peep through sand drifts, their delicate weave still intact. You lift one fragment, marveling at its durability. An eccentric curiosity surfaces. Local lore claims that temple custodians enchanted these filters with incantations so strong that even time itself struggled to unravel the fibers. You suppress a grin, picturing wizards chanting over mesh cones, ancient performance art of the highest order. Beyond the storeroom, a series of small antechambers reveal the palace's private quarters. You crouch to examine a low bench, carved from limestone, its surface smooth from centuries of use. Here, members of the royal court once reclined on reed mats, sipping mint-infused brews as they plotted alliances. You imagine their hushed conversations, the click of ceramic cups against stone, and the soft hissing of heated kettles coaxed to boil on brass furnaces. Today the brass is gone, looted long ago, leaving only scorched patches where embers once danced. You rise and stretch, letting the desert sun warm your shoulders. A faint silhouette on the horizon, a solitary date palm, catches your eye. It stands amid the ruins like a lone sentinel, its fronds swaying in time with the wind's mournful song. That tree may have shaded countless tea ceremonies centuries ago, its presence a comforting constant even as dynasties shifted. You approach and brush your fingertips along its trunk, feeling the coarse bark against your skin. A sudden gust scatters desert sand across your path, erasing footprints almost as soon as they form. You watch helplessly as your laces fill with grit, an apt metaphor for the erasure of this ritual from collective memory. Yet, even in decline, the ceremony left traces, the chipped lotus cup rims, the palm fiber filters, and the chemical whispers hidden in temple basins. Each fragment is a testament to resilience and fragility intertwined. An academic debate springs to mind again. Historians still debate whether the gradual disappearance of tea ceremonies was chiefly due to political fragmentation, or if climate-driven changes in Nile flooding patterns dealt the decisive blow. You smile at the irony that a simple change in river behavior might have toppled courtly customs more decisively than any foreign invasion. You retreat from the palace's hushed corridors and head toward an open courtyard where remnants of a once lavish garden lie entwined with thorny underbrush. You step carefully over cracked mosaic tiles, showing stylized waves and lotus blooms, the very symbols you've encountered in vessels that once carried tea from distant mountains to these sun-bleached halls. The garden must have been a living allegory of the ceremony's essence. Life flourishing amidst adversity. A light joke surfaces. I'd love to see a modern archaeologist's coffee break, probably inside a climate-controlled lab, not under a collapsed archway. You pause by an old well peering into its dark mouth. Perhaps this well once supplied water to ceremonial kettles, its depth measured in both meters and myth. You drop a small pebble and listen to the hollow echo. 3 seconds of sound, like a heartbeat of the past. You close your eyes and let the silence engulf you. The wind ceases for a moment, offering a rare pause in this ancient symphony. You recall the comforting hiss of Section 3's brazier, the gentle pour in Section 5, and the symbolic glow of Section 7's lantern-lit ceremony. Now, in the silence of decline, you feel the weight of loss, but also a subtle sense of continuity. The tea ceremony may have faded, but its stories endure in shards and stories. With a steady breath, you stand and brush sand from your clothes. The palace's grand archway frames a sky washed in tangerine twilight. You step through it as if passing between eras, carrying both the aroma of tea and the weight of history in your mind. The political tides may have swept away courtly rituals, but in your hands the fragments will find new life, rescued from oblivion, ready for revival. You glance back once more at the palace's skeletal silhouette, imagining lanterns flickering on balustrades and the soft clink of cups rising in morning air. A final light joke occurs to you. Rule number 1 of ancient palace etiquette: never let your kettle go cold. You smile, stepping into the encroaching dusk, determined to trace the ceremony's echoes through modern revival attempts waiting just beyond the horizon. You crouch at the edge of a newly exposed dig site near Kerma, fingers brushing away sandy soil to reveal a half-buried ceramic pot rim that glints with ancient tea residue. The air here tastes faintly metallic, spiced with the scent of turned earth and the warm hum of electric trowels, a strangely satisfying ASMR juxtaposition of prehistoric and high-tech. You lean closer as a lab technician swabs the rim with a sterile cotton bud, preparing it for mass spectrometry in a mobile field lab parked just beyond the trench. A well-known historical fact surfaces. In 2013, chemists first identified tea, biomarkers, catechins and theanine, in Chinese tombs dating back to the Han Dynasty, establishing a direct analytical link between pot shards and actual brewed tea. That breakthrough inspired Nubian archaeologists to re-examine shards once dismissed as mundane storage jars, transforming dusty pottery fragments into portals for lost rituals. You inhale deeply, tasting the electric excitement in the air. Modern science resurrecting flavors that drifted away centuries ago. Your trowel uncovers a flattened palm fiber filter, carbonized black at the edges, but retaining its delicate weave. The archaeologist beside you marvels. The mesh pattern matches descriptions from temple records of 500 CE, proof that these filters were single-use marvels designed to strain even the finest leaf fragments. An eccentric curiosity emerges. 1. Filter fragment still holds minuscule fish-scale flakes, evidence that some hosts added pulverized fish armor to stiffen their tea foam, a practice so bizarre you almost snort out loud. Modern baristas would raise an eyebrow at foam structured by piscine proteins. As you bag the samples, you recall Section 8 storeroom jars of date paste and oyster shell, realizing how residue analysis has turned rumor into quantifiable data. The lab technician waves you over to the portable spectrometer, its screen alive with rainbow-colored peaks and troughs representing molecular signatures. The device looks like a sci-fi prop, but here it demystifies legends, each spike confirming traces of caffeine, mint oils, and even traces of hyssop. A light joke crosses your mind. If only my coffee machine came with its own molecular scanner. Nearby, a drone hovers, capturing aerial imagery of soil erosion patterns that help predict where buried hearths once sat. This fusion of high-tech sensors and old-fashioned pickaxes conjures a surreal scene. You, in neon safety gear, brushing off fragments once cradled by pharaohs and nomads. Historians still debate whether these newly unearthed hearths served daily communal gatherings or were limited to state-sponsored ceremonies in palace courtyards. The question lingers as dust motes swirl like miniature galaxies in the afternoon sun. You stand and stretch, noticing how your shadow elongates across tram lines marking previous excavation layers. A colleague points out a row of shallow depressions in bedrock, the exact shape and arrangement of teacup placements described in Section 7's lantern-lit symbolism. You kneel to trace the contours, feeling the ancient blueprint beneath your fingertips. An eccentric relic emerges, a small clay scoop etched with a chunk of lotus petal motif, one of only 3 ever recorded, suggesting a localized teaware variant unique to this dig. You quip, limited edition ceremonial scoop, collectible, in Ruins and Relics magazine. The laboratory tent hums like a transformer box. You step inside, greeted by the hiss of nitrogen gas and the soft glow of analytical equipment. Bottles of solvent line a makeshift shelf, waiting to dissolve powdered residue scraped from shards. You watch through safety goggles as a chemist gently swirls a vial, the solution changing color to indicate tannin presence. Each hue shift is a time machine, transporting you to a riverside ceremony where steam rises in violet twilight. Outside, the archaeobotanist shows you a pile of charred. Tea leaf remains extracted from a collapsed brazier. The leaves are tiny, no larger than rosemary needles, yet lab analysis reveals distinct genotypes: wild mint, tamarind bark, even hints of cinnamon imported from across the Red Sea. An academic debate surfaces. Historians still debate whether the diversity of ingredients reflects practical medicinal blends or ostentatious displays of wealth by local elites. You tow the pile, feeling both scholar and grand conspirator of flavor. As the sun dips low, you wander toward a cluster of reed-lined hearths recently uncovered along the Nile's former shoreline. These hearths bear scorch patterns identical to the brazier setups you reenacted in Section 3's Riverside ritual. The parallel is uncanny. Last week you learned how to coax embers from acacia wood, and today you stand amid the char marks of your predecessors. A light joke bubbles up. If only I'd worn a GoPro, I'd have been the first to document ancient ASMR tea prep. The evening breeze carries the scent of crushed papyrus and distant cooking fires, an olfactory echo of nightly gatherings where tea soothed weary caravan guards. You pause, inhaling deeply, and imagine spectral voices discussing trade caravans. From Section 6, haggling over tea brick tariffs beneath a crescent moon. Your senses feel suspended between modern lab technician and ancient merchant, a dual role that thrills your inner storyteller. Back at camp, you spread out labeled samples on a work table lit by lantern glow. Small vials hold milky solutions of ash from oyster shell additives. Others hold fine plant extracts that tint the fluid emerald. The contrasts are staggering. One sample tastes faintly salty, another bursts with menthol clarity, and yet another carries an earthy bitterness that makes you pucker. Each swirl of color and flavor is a fragment of a ceremony once thought irretrievably lost. You lean back, feeling the day's discoveries settle in your mind like sediment in a glass of iced tea. The Field Lab's generator hums a lullaby, mixing with the river's distant gurgle, an ambient track you'd gladly loop in a modern relaxation playlist. A final light joke drifts through. If I could bottle this vibe, I'd launch Archaeologists Blend Tea for insomnia. Before heading to your tent, you check the excavation logs, maps marking future trenches, residue test schedules, and carbon dating slots. Tomorrow, the team will consult isotope charts to pinpoint trade route origins of the tea leaves, perhaps revealing whether beans carried by Axiomite sailors matched those found here. You tuck the logbook under your arm, already anticipating the revelation. As you zip open your tent, the lantern-lit interior beckons like a cozy den. You place your collected shards and vials on a low bench, their labels glinting in the flickering flame. Each sample is a promise of rituals resurrected, of flavors reborn, and of stories reborn in modern cups. You lie back on your mat, the tent's canvas walls sheltering you as the desert night hums outside. You close your eyes, imagining the next stage. Modern revivalists blending these ingredients to recreate authentic Nubian brews in urban tea rooms. But for now, you rest, content in the knowledge that archaeology has breathed life back into a ceremony long thought silent. The echoes linger in your dreams as molecular peaks and petal patterns dance behind your eyelids. You step into the softly lit tea room Lotus and Sands in downtown Khartoum, its walls hung with woven papyrus tapestries and backlit photographs of Nile sunsets framing the space like silent witnesses to history. A low table carved from Meroitic style. Stone sits at the center, surrounded by plush floor cushions upholstered in ochre and teal fabrics, colors recalling desert dunes and river currents. The scent of sandalwood incense mingles with a faint waft of mint, immediately transporting you back to the palm-lined banks of Section 1. A barista dressed in modern reinterpretations of ancient Nubian garb, linen tunic cinched with a leather belt, greets you with a respectful nod. On the counter lies an array of recovered artifacts, a small fragment of palm fiber filter from Section 10, a chipped lotus motif cup like the one you inspected in Section 4, and a ceramic jar reminiscent of Section 8's date paste vessels. Each is displayed as both art and inspiration for today's ceremonial blend. You settle onto a cushion as the barista begins the revival ritual. First, she pours mineral-rich spring water, sourced from the same aquifer that once fed Kushite wells, into a hand-thrown clay kettle. The clay's slight porosity recalls Section 4's high-fired Nubian ceramics, promising a mellow finish. She lights a compact burner fueled by sustainably harvested acacia wood, coaxing it to a steady glow that crackles like the brazier back in Section 3. Next, she measures a precise dose of tea brick fragments, ground earlier on a flat stone, and homage to your metal and grit milling in Section 3. The powder is a deep olive green flecked with dark ash from oyster shell additives, mirroring the eccentric foam enhancers of Section 5. With a practiced hand, she adds crushed Sinai mint, wild hyssop, and a whisper of hibiscus petals, ingredients validated by the lab analyses described in Section 10. As the water reaches a gentle boil, she lifts a palm fiber cone filter, a modern reproduction based on archaeology from Section 8, and fits it into the kettle's spout. She tilts the kettle, letting golden liquid drip into a waiting clay cup carved with lotus petals. The steady drip-drip resonates like ancient metronomes, each drop a heartbeat. You close your eyes, recalling the rhythmic pour under lanterns. In Section 7, when the cup is 3/4 full, she pauses and offers it to you for a slow inhalation. The aroma swells with layers, cooling mint, toasted date sap sweetness, and a hint of smoky acacia, notes you first traced in Section 5's Riverside Ceremony. The barista explains that they source date paste from valley groves descended from ancient cultivars, preserving the original sugar profile recorded in Section 8's residue charts. You sip the first tasting portion, just a mouthful, letting the liquid wash across your tongue. Instantly, the flavors unfold exactly as your journey predicted, bracing mint brightness, soft caramel warmth, and a subtle saline foam on the finish, testament to the oyster shell legacy. This modern recreation captures both the intellectual rigor of Section 10's lab data and the sensory magic of Section 1's dawn ceremony. Around you, fellow patrons, murmur appreciatively. One guest, a history professor, points to a digital display showing X-ray scans of tea-stained shards from Section 9's palace ruins, mapping artifact to flavor. Another, a local artisan, sketches the kettle's silhouette, planning a new line of teaware that merges contemporary minimalism with Nubian curves. The space feels alive with collaboration, echoing the communal bonds from Section 6's caravan camps. The barista offers a second cup, this time blended with a touch of pomegranate rind, inspired by hopeful archaeobotanical hints you encountered in Section 8. The tang cuts through the sweetness, adding complexity and nodding to rumors of exotic spices traded via Red Sea ports, as discussed in Section 2. You swirl the liquid and feel the interplay of ancient trade routes distilled into a single sip. As you settle into the tea room's ambient, hush, a modern counterpart to the palace garden in Section 9, you notice the soft lighting shifts from warm amber to a cooler glow, mirroring the Nile's transition from dawn to dusk. A gentle soundtrack of reed flute and distant water percussion drifts through hidden speakers, a curated collage of sounds drawn from your entire journey. River lapping, hearth crackles, caravan flutes, and quiet laboratory hums. Between sips, you converse with the barista about next steps, testing isotopic signatures to verify the pomegranate's provenance, experimenting with date-paced fermentations to replicate seasonal flavor variations, and hosting guided ceremonies that trace each ritual step from Sections 3 through 7. Enthusiasts plan workshops teaching patrons how to hand-weave palm filters and fire small kettles over portable braziers, inviting participants to become both student and steward of this living tradition. You reflect on how far this ceremony has traveled, from desert sands and riverbanks through palace decline, archaeological trenches and high-tech field labs, to a chic urban tea room that bridges past and present. Each stage enriched the narrative, Section 1's immersive dawn, Section 2's historical arcs, Sections 3-5's tactile rituals, Section 6's caravan camaraderie, Section 7's symbolism, Section 8's storeroom revelations, Section 9's ruins, and Section 10's scientific resurrection. Now, in Section 11, the tea lives again, an evolving tapestry woven by countless hands across millennia. Finishing your last cup, you feel the tea's warmth fade into a reflective afterglow. A light joke surfaces, modern productivity hack. Replace coffee runs with Nubian tea ceremonies and get both caffeine and culture. The barista smiles, nodding in agreement. You leave Lotus and Sands as the tea room's door swings shut behind you with a soft chime, stepping into humid evening air. The urban skyline glows like constellation markers, reminding you of the same stars that once witnessed Nubian sewing festivals by moonlight. You carry with you not just the memory of that first sip, but the knowledge that rituals, even those buried under centuries of sand, can be reborn through curiosity, science, and shared passion. Ahead lies Section 12, exploring diaspora adaptations of Nubian tea in global cities and the next wave of revival that will carry this ancient ceremony into the future. But for now, you walk home, cradling a small, lotus-etched cup, its amber residue a testament to journeys past and possibilities yet steeped. You step off the tram into the neon-hued streets of East London, the evening air buzzing with a dozen languages and aromas. In your hand is the lotus-etched cup from Lotus and Sands, still faintly warmed by last night's brew. As you navigate past street art murals and vintage bookshops, you notice a sleek storefront, Nubian Roots and Remix, a modern cafe co-founded by first and second generation Nubian Britons. The sign blends hieroglyphic-style lettering with graffiti spray, an invitation to explore diaspora adaptations of your cherished ritual. A young barista greets you in Khartoum-style halabia with a London twist, a reclaimed denim vest embroidered with papyrus motifs. She leads you down a narrow corridor lined with photographic portraits of Nubian elders who emigrated in the 1960s, carrying tea bricks and recipes in tattered suitcases. A placard notes a well-known historical fact. Large numbers of Nubians relocated to cities like Port Said and Cairo after Egypt's Aswan Dam projects in the 1960s, bringing their tea traditions to urban centers across the globe. You sink onto a low stool beneath Edison bulbs and order their signature River Remix blend. While you wait, you examine a shelf of heritage jars. Each preserves a variant recipe from a different city. Cairo Caramel Cardamom. Black tea with date syrup and ground green cardamom, a nod to Section 8's date paste vessels. Khartoum Cold Brew. Cold steeped tea with mint julep-style crushed ice, inspired by Section 3's Riverside Chills. New York Rooftop Spice. Tea infused with dried hibiscus, tamarind, and a hint of chili, reflecting diaspora fusion. An eccentric curiosity peeks out. Behind the counter stands a miniature bonsai acacia tree decorated with tiny LED lights, a living homage to the desert's signature wood used in ceremonial braziers, Section 3. You smile, imagining dessert acacia trending among Instagram influencers. The barista returns with your cup. The River Remix strikes a perfect balance: smoky tea base, mint, crisp top notes, and a swirl of pomegranate molasses garnish. You lift it to your lips and taste the journey, ancient Nile currents meeting Thames drizzle. Patrons around you tap away on laptops, reviewing tea cocktail menus that incorporate filtered tea, concentrates into modern mixology, tea-infused gin, tea syrup old-fashions, and even tea-forward zero-proof mocktail sorbets. A conversation trickles over from the table next to you. Two cultural anthropologists debate whether diaspora cafes should preserve authenticity or embrace innovation. One insists that only unadulterated tea bricks imported from Nubia count as true ceremony. The other argues that evolution keeps traditions alive. The academic back and forth reminds you of the debates from Section 7 and Section 10, ritual versus reinvention, purity versus pragmatism. Leaving the cafe, you hop onto the Jubilee line, bound for a pop-up in Brooklyn called Tea of Two Rivers, run by a Nubian-American collective. The space is a converted warehouse with floor cushions tailored from camel hide and reclaimed teak. Muraled quotes from Section 2's Caravan Merchants, Salt for Tea, emblazoned in bold stencils, cover the walls. Tonight's menu features spice route sampler flights, letting visitors taste 4 micro batches. Oyster foam, fizz, a modern reinterpretation of Section 5's shell-infused froth, carbonated with nitrous oxide. Lotus blossom lullaby, floral white tea distilled with rosewater and orange peel, echoing Section 4's symbolism. Caravan cold drip, long duration, cold brew with tamarisk bark and aged date syrup, a nod to caravan endurance from Section 6. Ceremonial cocktail, tea base, gin, muddled mint, and hibiscus foam, bridging ancient ceremony and cocktail culture. You sample the oyster foam fizz. A fine layer of pearly bubbles rests on the surface, light, saline, and fleeting. It bursts on your tongue like champagne, yet carries the vegetal heart of tea. The overall effect is so theatrical you imagine medieval Nubian priests stirring kettles, in Rococo theatres. An eccentric curiosity arises. One guest is scanning QR codes on coasters to unlock AR reconstructions of Section 9's crumbling palace chamber, complete with virtual lotus-carved columns and flickering lanterns. You glimpse digital lotus petals drifting across your phone screen as patrons brew tea in virtual reality, layering historical context over modern technology. Across the room, two home-brewing enthusiasts compare steep ratios using Bluetooth-connected precision scales. They reference Section 10's field lab spectrometry data to optimize antioxidant extraction. Science once confined to labs, now democratized on kitchen counters. Their zeal borders on playful fanaticism. You half expect them to measure catechin peaks mid-conversation. As the night deepens, you join a short ceremony on a raised dais. A curator pours tea into earthenware bowls, inviting participants to pass a single bowl in a clockwise circle, an homage to communal sips shared in caravan camps. Section 6. You feel the collective heartbeat of 1,000 migrations, each person cradling the same warmth. You take a final sip, letting the flavors of diaspora cohere. Ancient rituals adapting to skyscraper skylines, high-tech labs inspiring candlelit cafes, and remote caravan routes intersecting urban landscapes. A light joke flits through your mind. If globalization had come with a teapot, we'd all speak papyrus by now. Leaving Tea of Two Rivers, you step into the crisp Brooklyn night. Street vendors sell shawarma and falafel, the nightly scent tapestry layering atop distant subway rumbles. You realize the tea ceremony, once bound by riverbanks and palace courtyards, now thrives in fast-paced cities, reinvented by diasporic hands. Each adaptation honors tradition while boldly charting new courses, just as caravans once did across shifting sands. You tuck your lotus cup into your satchel, its amber residue now streaked with urban ferment. Ahead lies Section 13, the sustainability movement in Nubian tea revival, fair trade sourcing, regenerative farming along the Nile, and eco-conscious teaware revivals. But for now, you walk home through mosaic-lit streets, carrying with you the diaspora's living brew, proof that ritual survives in every city's heartbeat. You rise before dawn along the east bank of the Nile, the river's silver ribbon reflecting the first blush of light on a stretch of newly planted tea garden plots. These aren't imported Camellia sinensis fields, but experimental beds of local mints, hibiscus, and date palm understory herbs, revived heirloom varieties that promise both ecological resilience and authentic regional flavor. Today, you're here to witness the sustainability movement powering the modern Nubian tea revival. A solar-powered irrigation system hums at your feet, feeding each row with precise drip lines calibrated to soil moisture sensors. You recall Section 10's lab analyses of ancient residue charts. Today's farmers use those data to recreate the exact mineral profiles once imparted by Nile floodwaters. Instead of heavy chemical fertilizers, they harness composted river reeds and date palm coir from nearby cooperatives, closing nutrient loops and restoring soils degraded by decades of monocropping. A farmer named Naima greets you, her wide-brimmed straw hat woven from recycled palm fronds. She leads you through rows of mint variants, Sinai mint, riverbank spearmint, and a rare wild hyssop whose essential oil yield rivals steam-distilled classics. She explains how each cultivar was rescued from remote wadis, small dry valleys where elders once foraged them centuries ago. Through a participatory seed exchange network, these plants now flourish in living gene banks along the river, safeguarding genetic diversity against climate shifts. You crouch beside a solar dryer, a low-profile structure clad in UV-resistant plastic, that transforms freshly harvested leaves into crisp, savory chips within hours. The dryer's curved panels track the sun, optimizing energy capture and preserving volatile compounds often lost in open-air sun drying. This echoes Section 3's emphasis on charcoal-free brazier fires, replacing wood smoke with clean, solar heat to avoid unwanted phenolic notes and air quality impacts. Nearby are women's weaving collective fashion single-use tea filters from biodegradable palm fibers, modern iterations of Section 4's ancient cones. Each filter is stamped with a QR code that links to the farm's lineage story. GPS coordinates of the harvest plot, the farmer's name, and the estimated flood year that shaped the soil. These filters decompose in home compost within weeks, seeding the next generation of herbs and embodying the cradle-to-cradle ethos modern revivalists prize. Downriver, a riverside pavilion houses a micro-cooperative laboratory where young agronomists test pH levels and mineral uptake in hydroponic trays fed by filtered Nile water. This research builds on Section 8's storeroom revelations. Oyster shell and snail shell residues once boosted calcium. Today, they experiment with ground mollusk byproducts sourced as food industry waste, repurposing them to strengthen cell walls and improve tea leaf texture without over-harvesting coastal species. You join a midday roundtable under shade, sails woven from repurposed fishing nets, representatives from diaspora cafes like those in Sections 11 and 12 zoom in via satellite link, discussing direct trade agreements that track every kilogram of leaf from farm to tea room. They negotiate fair price premiums, community investment funds, and joint branding that credits the villages of origin. A well-known historical fact echoes. Ancient caravan traders marked loads of tea bricks with merchant stamps. Today's blockchain-style provenance labels pay homage to that tradition in digital form. At the edge of the planting beds stands an experimental kiln powered by reclaimed date palm pits. Fired to low temperatures, it produces unglazed clay teapots and cups reminiscent of Section 4's meroitic ceramics, but with dramatically reduced carbon emissions. Ceramicists use local clay mixed with ground river sediment, mineral contrasts, that tweak the cup's porosity and influence flavor release. Each batch is tinted subtly by iron oxide ochres sourced from riverbanks that once colored palace mosaics. Section 9, reconnecting vessel and landscape. In the afternoon sun, you sip a test brew prepared in one of these new pots. The tea yields bright floral notes and a gentle mouthfeel, remarkably free of any smoky taint. Naima explains that every brewmaster in the network follows a shared protocol, a precise steep time of 3 minutes, 9 swirls of the reed spoon, echoing Section 7 symbolism, and a final flash rinse of cold spring water to awaken aromatics. Even ritual gestures become tools for quality control. You wander to a small orchard of date palms framing a communal gathering space. Here, visitors practice the revived ceremony in open-air workshops. Each participant grinds their own tea bricks, fragments on stone querns, roasting them briefly over solar concentrator reflectors. They then filter, pour, and taste side by side, creating both consistency and connection. The facilitators encourage reflection on sustainability principles. Respect the land that feeds you, they say, and leave it healthier than you found it. Beyond the pavilion, a shaded canal channels canal bank runoff through reed bed biofilters before it returns to the river, an engineered wetland drawing inspiration from Section 2's ancient irrigation systems. The reeds not only clean water but also provide fiber for future filters and insulation for processing sheds. This closed-loop water management ensures that tea operations actually improve local ecosystems rather than depleting them. As dusk falls, you join a lantern-lit meal under the date palms. Local chefs plate wild-foraged fava beans with mint sauces, hibiscus pickles, and thin flatbreads baked in the clay kiln's residual heat. Each dish incorporates byproducts from tea production, spent leaf compost sprinkled as seasoning, filter fiber crisps tossed into salads. The meal becomes a living demonstration of zero-waste practice, echoing the ritual's original spirit of resourcefulness and respect. You reflect on how far the ceremony has come. From riverbank, clay kettles and palm fiber cones, through palace decline and scientific rediscovery, to urban cafes and now regenerative farms. Every actor, farmer, artisan, scientist, barista, forms a link in a chain of stewardship. By honoring traditional knowledge and integrating modern sustainability, they ensure the tea ceremony remains not just a cultural relic, but a vibrant, living practice that nourishes both people and planet. As the stars appear overhead, ancient constellations once used by caravan navigators now guide you home along a lanterned path. You cradle your cup, a prototype made from date pit kiln, clay, and taste a final sip, cool mint clarity mingled with earthy depth, each note a promise of future harvests. The breeze carries the night's first lotus blossom fragrance from the ceremonial pond, a fragrant benediction for the land's renewal. Tomorrow you'll visit the Riverbank Seed Library and the solar pump cooperatives in Section 14, where communities co-manage water rights and seed sovereignty. But for tonight, you stand under the palms, feeling the living commitment of farmers, artisans, and drinkers alike. The sustainability movement has reshaped the ceremony into a model for ethical revival, one that respects the past, enriches the present, and safeguards the future. You arrive at the riverbank at first light, where a low pavilion of reed thatch shelters long rows of clay pots and wooden boxes. This is the Community Seed Library, a living archive of Nubian tea-related flora. Sunlight slants through rustling date palms as farmers, agronomists, and schoolchildren gather to inspect seed packets labeled with ancestral names: Wadi mint, Fayoum hyssop, desert marjoram, and dozens more. A well-known historical fact resonates. Sudan's Gezira scheme, launched in 1925, was one of the world's largest irrigation projects, yet it narrowed crop diversity by favoring cotton monoculture. Today's seed library counters that legacy by safeguarding heirloom varieties once relegated to field margins. Each packet bears a QR tag linking to DNA barcode data generated in Section 10's mobile labs, ensuring precise cultivar identity and provenance. Fatima, the seed librarian, greets you by name. She lifts the lid of a miniature chest, carved from acacia and El Kufa clay. Its compartments hold seed vials from remote wadis and tribal farmlands. She carefully opens a vial of Jebel Kashla hibiscus, its seeds tinted deep burgundy. Breaking them between her thumb and forefinger releases a faint tart aroma, a living echo of the petals once steeped in palace ceremonies. Section 9. Nearby, a group of women in brightly dyed halabias stitch new seed packets using repurposed palm fiber filters from Section 4. They label each with the harvester's initials, harvest date, and soil pH readings from Section 13's hydroponic trials. One woman quips, "If only my email could self-organize like our seed database." Their laughter ripples across the riverbank like an ancient ritual call to preserve biodiversity. You stroll toward the solar pump cooperative compound, rows of photovoltaic panels gleaming like a modern oasis. These pumps draw filtered Nile water into raised channels, feeding both experimental beds and smallholder farms. A well-known historical fact murmurs through your mind. Millennia ago, Nubian engineers engineered Shadoof and Sakia wheels to manage water. Now solar arrays have replaced oxen and manual wheels, marrying ancient ingenuity with renewable energy. The cooperative's manager, Omar, demonstrates the control panel. Moisture sensors in each bed trigger precise irrigation cycles, conserving up to 60% of water compared to flood methods. He watches a smartphone dashboard showing real-time flow rates, nutrient levels, and solar output. An eccentric curiosity catches your eye. A vintage Sakia wheel repurposed as a decorative signpost, its paddles inscribed with stylized lotus petals, an homage to Section 7's symbolism. As you kneel by a raised bed of wild mint variants, Omar explains governance. Every cooperative member holds one vote on water use schedules, seed sharing rules, and maintenance budgets. These decisions echo centuries-old village assemblies where elders balanced resource use. An academic debate surfaces. Some agronomists argue that highly technical systems risk alienating older farmers, while others insist that inclusive training bridges the gap between tradition and technology. Across the compound, children crown a young neem sapling planted to provide shade for future tea pickers. They learn about soil-building cover crops, rotating legumes like cowpea to fix nitrogen before tea herb plantings. This polyculture approach contrasts sharply with Gezira's cotton rows, restoring resilience against pests and erratic Nile floods. A light joke drifts through your thought. If only my office had cover crops under the cubicles, I'd feel more energized. At midday, you join a stewardship circle beneath a date palm grove. Each participant offers a handful of seed, newly harvested, dried under Section 13's solar dryer, and labeled for next season's exchange. They speak of seed sovereignty, reclaiming control from commercial suppliers, and ensuring that disease-resistant landraces remain in farmers' hands. This ritual mirrors caravan gift exchanges from Section 6, fostering trust and reciprocity. You ask about challenges. Fatima admits that occasional floods breach the pump channels, washing away newly planted beds. Omar nods, explaining that next month they'll install low-cost gabion barriers and test flood-tolerant mint strains, echoing ancient breeders who selected for durability in the face of shifting waters. A colleague chimes in. Historians still debate whether climate variability or political centralization most disrupted traditional agriculture in late antique Nubia. Here, farmers tackle both by blending seed diversity with water-smart engineering. In the afternoon light, you walk a demonstration plot where teaware artisans, which you met in Section 13, experiment with living clay, planting seeds directly into unglazed cups to measure root soil interactions. The irony isn't lost on you. The same vessel that once held tea now hosts the tea plant's genesis. A light joke surfaces, brewing tea and growing tea in the same cup, ultimate farm-to-table zen. Before departing, you sign a digital log authorizing the release of 50 grams of Fayum hyssop seeds to a diaspora cooperative in Berlin, a diaspora link first kindled in Section 12's Nubian Roots and Remix. This direct trade seed agreement ensures that European urban farms can cultivate heirloom herbs, strengthening global seed networks. The QR tags you scan update the central registry, a modern counterpart to merchant stamps on medieval tea bricks. You watch a final sunset over the Nile, sandals dangling as you dip your feet in the cool current. Children chase each other along the bank, trailing bits of date palm frond like confetti. The seed library and solar pump cooperative hum with the promise of next season's harvest, a testament to community stewardship and sustainable revival. As stars emerge, once used by caravan navigators and now by solar pump controllers, you reflect on the tapestry of Sections 1 through 14, dawn ceremonies, palace rituals, archaeological revelations, urban cafes, and now regenerative farms and seed sovereignty. Each thread converges here at the river's edge, where past and future merge in living soil and living seeds. Tomorrow, Section 15 will explore the cultural festivals and educational programs that will broadcast this living ritual to tomorrow's global audience. But for now, you tuck your lotus cup into your satchel, breathe deeply of Nile fresh air, and carry with you the seed of a new era, one rooted in heritage, nurtured by science, and blossoming toward sustainability. You step onto a raised platform in the heart of Khartoum's new cultural nexus, a gleaming pavilion shaped like a lotus blossom opening toward the Nile. Today begins the inaugural River and Ritual Festival, a 5-day celebration weaving together the living threads of Nubian tea culture, from ancient ceremonies at dawn to cutting-edge sustainability initiatives. The air thrums with anticipation, punctuated by the rhythmic beat of darbuka drums and the scent of mint steam curling from steaming samovars. Day 1. Opening. Symposium scholars, farmers, artisans, baristas, and diaspora artists gather beneath a soaring canopy for keynote addresses. A well-known historical fact anchors the opening talk. In 2003, UNESCO inscribed Egypt's tea ceremony heritage on its intangible cultural heritage list, sparking renewed interest across the Nile basin. Speakers reference sections 4 and 7's symbolism lectures demonstrating how lotus motifs and ninefold stirring rituals transcend time and serve as anchors for global recognition. Live translators stream in 5 languages, while a sign language interpreter traces each gesture, ensuring the ceremony's messages ripple across cultures. Day 2. Sensory workshops. In sunlight-dappled alcoves, participants don woven reed filter, headbands, and learn to grind tea brick fragments on stone querns, an homage to Section 3's Riverside ASMR ritual. Simultaneously, children attend mini mixologist classes where they blend hibiscus, mint, and pomegranate extracts, packaging them in biodegradable sachets stamped with QR codes from Section 13's Sustainable Filter Program. One lively group competes to design the most balanced youth blend, judged by a panel of agronomists who consult Section 10's molecular profiles to ensure optimal catechin content. Day 3. Caravan reenactment. Procession. At dawn, a line of decorated camels emerges from behind the pavilion as carnival-style floats reenact Section 6's desert caravan. Performers drum and flute, invoking ancient caravan silk road rhythms, while lantern-crowned camel jockeys distribute miniature tea brick souvenirs to onlookers. A live feed projects the procession onto giant screens, intercut with video interviews from Sections 11 and 12's diaspora cafes, testimonies of how this ritual pulse continues in London, Brooklyn, and beyond. Day 4. Global Tea Law. Marketplace. The central plaza transforms into a bazaar of tea rooms, each curated by international partners. A Kyoto stall showcasing matcha Nubian fusion, inspired by Section 2's East-West trade, parallels. A Moroccan corner riffing on hibiscus and date paste sweets, and a New Orleans pavilion offering tea-infused beignets. QR tags link recipes back to Sections 8 and 15, creating a digital tea atlas that maps each cultural adaptation. Visitors vote on their favorite fusion, with results published in real time on an interactive geofenced web portal. Day 5. Education and Future Builders. Summit. Under a lattice of solar panels borrowed from Section 14's cooperative design, educators convene to integrate Nubian tea heritage into school curricula. Workshops train teachers to adopt tea and culture modules. Grade 6, students recreate Section 1's dawn ritual in miniature gardens. Grade 9 science labs replicate Section 10's spectrometry assays to analyze catechin levels. And vocational programs partner with Section 13's farmers to build solar dryers and design biodegradable teaware. The summit culminates in a pledge circulated among 50 schools to submit lesson plan prototypes for UNESCO's Global Education Awards. Throughout the festival, an augmented reality app called SIP and See overlays holographic reconstructions of Section 9's palace tea chambers atop the pavilion's glass floors. By scanning festival badges, visitors unlock 360-degree VR tours of excavation trenches from Section 8, complete with narrated anecdotes of oyster shell foam and date paste jars. At dusk each evening, a communal tea ceremony unfolds on the floodplain stage. Baristas and farmers jointly prepare Festival Blend, combining heirloom ingredients from Section 14's seed library with artisanal filters from Section 13. Attendees form concentric circles, passing shared cups under lantern light as storytellers recount pivotal moments from Sections 1 to 15. A final Lotus Lantern release sends hundreds of biodegradable lanterns drifting across the Nile, symbolizing the ritual's living legacy, carried downstream through time and across borders. By the festival's close, the River and Ritual archives launch a digital portal, recorded lectures, recipe databases, video reenactments, and interactive maps that stitch together every section's discoveries. A light joke circulates in closing remarks. We came for tea, but stayed for the world tour. As you exit the pavilion under a canopy of date palm fronds swaying in the summer breeze, you reflect on how Section 15's cultural festival and educational programs broadcast the ceremony's living tapestry to tomorrow's global stewards, ensuring that each sip carries the weight of history and the promise of a sustainable, interwoven future. You awaken to a ping on your tablet, an alert from the River and Ritual digital portal announcing the launch of a new open-access research commons. Today, scholars worldwide can upload and annotate datasets, 3D scans of teaware from Section 9's palace shards, spectrometry peaks, Section 10's field lab, and seed genetics, Section 14's library. The Commons is designed to fuel cross-disciplinary inquiry and ensure the ceremony's knowledge remains freely shared. A well-known historical fact pops into your mind. In 2002, the Sudan National Museum digitized its Nubian artifact catalogue, but most files remained siloed. This new platform breaks down those silos, combining museum scans with field lab residue charts and festival footage, Section 15 under Creative Commons licenses. You swipe through a user-contributed 3D model of the lotus-etched cup you first held in Section 4, now linked to GIS maps of its find spot and high-res petrographic analyses. You join a virtual roundtable via holographic telepresence. Participants range from a VR museum curator in Tokyo to a community archivist in Cairo and a soundscape artist in Sao Paulo. They debate whether fully immersive reconstructions, complete with AI-generated incense smoke and reenacted flute melodies, enhance understanding or risk fantasizing authenticity. The academic exchange mirrors earlier debates over ritual standardization, Section 7, versus organic evolution, Section 12. An eccentric curiosity flashes. One contributor minted a series of tea NFTmania tokens, digital artworks of tea-stained filters and oyster shell foam patterns, Section 5, to fund ongoing seed bank maintenance. The tokens sold out in minutes, raising enough for a solar pump upgrade at Section 14's cooperative. You can't help but think, a smart contract for a mint leaf smart contract, Meta. Next, you explore an AI-powered tea dialogue assistant embedded in the Commons. Users type questions. What's the calcium solubility threshold for oyster shell? Foam? And the bot pools Section 8's residue profiles, hydroponic trial results, Section 13, and even festival participant feedback, Section 15, to craft nuanced answers. You test it. Recommend a hybrid mint date formula for an altitude above 2,000 meters. Within seconds, the assistant cites seed origin data and suggests a roasting profile. Meanwhile, a crowdsourced storyboard project invites graphic novelists to illustrate key moments: your first caravan crossing, Section 6, the palace decline, Section 9, and the tea room revival, Section 11. One artist uploads ink sketches of lotus lamps floating above the Nile, accompanied by verse in both English and Nubian bilingual script. You smile at the convergence of ancient artistry and digital crowdsourcing. On your commute through gleaming city streets, you pause at a pop-up Meta Tea Lounge, a temporary VR installation where visitors don headsets and attend the Section 1 dawn ceremony, complete with algorithmic sunrise and procedurally generated steam patterns. The experience is so vivid that someone tries to sip the virtual cup. A light joke ripples across social media. When XR meets tea time, watch out for phantom splashes. Back at your desk, you curate a podcast series interviewing key figures from each section: the riverbank ritualist, Section 1, the caravan storyteller, Section 6, the lab chemist, Section 10, and the festival organizer, Section 15. Episodes feature ambient recordings, palm wood brazier crackle, camel bell echoes, and digital festival drumming, creating a sonic tapestry that listeners stream around the globe. By nightfall, the Research Commons dashboard flashes a new metric: 10,000 active contributors from 57 countries, 1,200 peer-reviewed annotations, and dozens of virtual symposiums scheduled for the coming year. You reflect on how digital tools have extended the ceremony's reach beyond physical tea rooms and farmlands into cyberspace, classrooms, and living rooms worldwide. A final eccentric note: a gamer developer has built a TeaQuest mod for a popular open-world RPG, letting players forage wild mint, barter tea bricks at digital bazaars, and host in-game ceremonies that boost NPC morale stats. You can't resist grinning at the gamified tribute to Section 3's riverside foraging and Section 6's caravan trades. Closing your tablet, you lean back and savor the moment. From clay kettles to blockchain tokens, from palace ruins to VR lounges, the tea ceremony has become a living, evolving network. Its every leaf, filter, and code snippet part of an ever-growing tapestry. Tomorrow, Section 17 will explore the burgeoning wellness and design industries adopting Nubian tea principles. But for tonight, you rest in confidence that the ritual's digital heartbeat will pulse stronger with each click, sip, and shared story.